They should be used to this by now.
Are people like been in? Are you guys still going to do something today?
Yeah. Well, well, and I'm sure they're at. Are you at 2? Are you at 3? Let's see.
So I see us there, and I'm just going to share us a couple places.
Yeah, do that. Because, like I said, mine did say 2:30, but yeah, they'll find us, or they'll watch us on the record. Because that's the serious downside of Clubhouse, is it is only live.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys,
but that's okay. I think that's what I kind of like about Clubhouse.
I like it.
Be able to have a casual conversation, with people. Oops, my group is
Diane figured it out. Yeah, Diane, we didn't communicate as well as we should have.
Yes. Hey, we're at practice.
Old time. We're here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So hi guys, we're talking about spay and neuter today. And I'm excited about this conversation because over the years, I've had a change in heart when it comes to spay and neuter, just based on things I've seen with my dogs, with other people's dogs. Mm-hmm. But let's start from the top of, why do we spay and neuter our animals?
I got to wondering, why? Who decided, let's chop out her uterus or chop off his balls? What farmer, animal person? Probably it was first farmers who were castrating steers or castrating bulls to make steers because they were using them as draft animals. And so they wanted something more cooperative, and they figured out that removing testosterone would make them more amenable and cooperative, and then horses, of course. But I don't know who got to thinking about dogs and, whether it would stop unwanted reproduction or make them more cooperative or what. But I think today the average pet owner thinks it's the responsible thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that they even think about it beyond that.
Yeah. What made they
don't want puppies, or for that matter, kittens.
Yeah. I mean, I started thinking, twice about it, simply because hearing that in other countries, like people don't commonly spay and neuter their pets, and they also don't have an overpopulation problem with pets as either. So, and I know that when it comes to comparing America to other countries, it's really kind of an apples and oranges type of situation, because There are so many things. It's not just, do we spay, do we not spay? It's, it's culture, it's history, it's, it's so many things that we deal with. Whereas, but it still makes me slow down and think,
and why am I doing this? It's illegal to perform just an elective spay or neuter. Mm-hmm. Illegal. If it's a non-health related reason, like I believe Sweden is one of those countries, it's not going to happen, which is really intriguing. They view it as a mutilation, much as ear cropping or tail docking.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Which, and when you want to breed a dog in many countries in Europe, you must get permission from the kennel club. You must prove your dog's health and appropriateness to be bred. It's a whole different ballgame than in the United States, where we create designer mutts. And so
I have one.
$.
I have a designer mutt.
Yep. I like Debbie's comment because Bob Barker on The Price is Right said
so. I remember that,
and all of these people who are pushing for spay neuter, their purpose is noble. They don't want unwanted puppies and kittens produced. And I get it. But for me, the crucial thing is the health of the individual dog, and spaying and neutering these dogs prior to an appropriate age of physical maturity is potentially harmful.
Yeah.
And we're talking about things like bad cancers, mast cells, lymphoma, other thyroid conditions, ruptured cruciates, things that have a huge impact on that individual's health and the owner's life, as well as obviously the dog's life.
Yeah. And the thing about it, the thing that gets me is there are so many camps. So there's people who want to delay the spay or, hold off, as you said, until the dog is mature. There are people who don't spay and neuter at all because they basically have the attitude of, I manage my dogs, I keep my dogs safe, and I'm actively keeping my dog from knocking anyone up or getting pregnant. And then, there's the rescue community that has been spaying and neutering dogs earlier and earlier, just because overpopulation of unwanted pets is kind of insane in this country. And there are those people who will go out because, designer dogs are acceptable. And so many people are unaware, and don't do the research when they're going to get a puppy at someone's house. People don't care about trying to, or I shouldn't say, there's a group of people that don't care about the honoring the lines and staying true to a breed and stuff. So they're just making up these words. I mean, I have a Goberian. He's a Siberian Husky Golden Retriever mix. That's a dumb name
forever.
Yeah, this is a dumb name for a dog. And although I love Apollo, I think he's the greatest dog ever. He's a challenging animal. To have. And
actually, Dr. Jean Dodds released a blog that I haven't gotten to yet, but it came in my email about the health implications of these designer crosses. And, when you consider, we have beautiful genetic testing and other options to make sure we're breeding the healthiest dogs. A lot of the mixed breeders do not take advantage. And sometimes the tests aren't as helpful because they're specific DNA to a breed. So, if you decide you're going to take your golden doodle and breed it to an Aussie doodle, you can't necessarily do accurate genetic testing on those parents because of the mixed breed nature. The genes aren't always the same.
Yeah. And so when it comes to spay and neuter, what is the age? Because we're also dealing with tiny dogs, and small dogs, medium-sized dog, large dogs, and giant breed dogs.
Right. The bigger the dog, the later you wait. So, a giant breed or large breed, anything from a Labrador or Golden Retriever up, I would wait till almost 2 years. The smaller breeds, you might get away with 15 months. If you have any doubt, what I would do is ask your veterinarian to shoot an X-ray of the hind limb and see if the growth plates in the pelvis and femur have closed. If they've closed, your dog has reached skeletal maturity, which is the last step in my book of total body maturity. So there's a nice, easy, objective test that takes 10 seconds.
Yeah. So we're holding out, as far as a dog that's older than 2 years old and still intact, are there any health consequences to never spaying and neutering your dog?
We used to think that it totally increased the risk of mammary cancer, and those statistics are not holding up in the test of time. And the risk of mammary cancer related to staying intact or not being spayed before your first heat, those are greatly exaggerated. The risk of prostatic cancer, well, there's more neutered dogs out there with prostatic cancer than there are intact. So while the risk does still exist for those two cancers, hang on. My office is starting a group text, one of my least favorite things. And delete, keep me out of it. I hate group texts. I hate group messages. And everybody chimes in. It's like, really?
So we're going to just a little bit of an aside. You guys know we did this sometimes.
Just a little.
Totally agree with you. It always seems like a great idea. In fact, I had this the other day where I wanted to send 3 of my friends something. And I just send it all to them, in one text chain. The problem is that people will respond to it and it just goes on and on and on.
Yes.
And that's not what you do. So just copy and paste your message and just
And they're looking for someone to work. We have a doctor moving out of state, and they're looking for somebody to work on the 29th of May. Today is May 4th. Talk to people when they are at work. Keep work at work. Put a note in our mailboxes. Catch us in between office calls. We can say yay or nay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't group text. Anyway, so where were we? Oh, skeletal maturity and such. And, I think I point this out all the time. Just because your pet has their parts does not mean they are part of the problem of pet overpopulation. And I personally am sick and tired of people blaming others that choose to keep their pet intact for whatever reason and are responsible, because we all manage to reproduce, keep our own reproduction under control, as most of us anyway. So what's so hard?
Yeah.
What's so hard? Oh, Kathy, they could catch us on live and ask. Well, bottom line, I'm not working those days.
So, but it's interesting to me because, when it comes to, rescue, I see the other side of it, and I see it's one of those things where I was very much into, no, you should wait, let your dog mature, until, and I was like, I will never adopt, a dog from certain rescues because they spay and neuter early. I will always only adopt from places that give me a contract. I still kind of feel that way. And what I've done is I've spoken to rescue groups to let them know, if I get a puppy from you, can I just have it under contract? And because I've proven myself with so many dogs, they're willing to let me do it. However, now I completely forgot what I was going to say. I know what it is. Is one thing, when I was at events promoting my blog and things like that, and I would have people come to my booth and they're talking about, oh yeah, we're breeding this dog. And I would see dogs that had deformities. I would see dogs, basically dogs that a reputable professional breeder would not be breeding this dog. I mean, they would, but there are so many people who have zero knowledge of what it is to have a dog. And if their dog has puppies, then they'll just sell the puppies. I mean, That's how we got 2 of our dogs. And it's unfortunate the way it is. So that's why I don't really have a problem with the rescue community and their choice to spay and neuter animals before they go home to their new family. I just sort of feel like, as pet people, if we're going to adopt, we need to educate ourselves and know what we're getting into. And if we can show that we're a responsible, pet owner, we can try and talk them into allowing us to have a contract.
They come to your house and, they do background checks. They check you out so extensively, and then they won't trust you to not let the dog reproduce.
Well, some of them do. Some rescue groups are just like, here, take the money. Here's your dog. Goodbye. So.
Yeah, it's really tough around here. And I worked at a shelter for 4.5 years, and I did 8-week-old puppies and kittens, and I cringe about it. But, our intake numbers over there, I've personally spayed or neutered over 25,000 animals. Our intake numbers year to year did not change because the people who were adopting those animals weren't the people dumping animals at the shelter.
Yeah.
So, we weren't cutting off the reproductive abilities of the right dogs to have an impact.
Right. And that's actually such a great point.
A $500 deposit, you get it back when it's spayed or neutered.
Yeah.
And there's always a way.
And then when it comes to like our dogs that were spayed and neutered early, do you have recommendations or advice on what we can do in their diet or with them physically that can kind of offset the damage that an early neuter would do?
The trouble is you're not going to offset it because their growth pattern is going to be different. And their growth plates are going to close late. So you're changing the whole proportions of their bodies, as well as not having the hormones for mental maturity and some of the development of structures in a normal way. Like development, actually, your reproductive tract governs a lot of your endocrine system. So you can try to replace it like with the Mercola glandulars or probably standard process, but it's not as good as doing what Mother Nature would do.
Right.
So you do the best you can, of course. You do fresh food, you do the right supplements, you keep them active, thoughtful vaccination, all the stuff you guys already know. But some things you won't be able to change.
Yeah.
And periodically, and I've got to start saving them, pictures go around of litter mates one that was left intact, one that was spayed or neutered at 6 months of age. And they don't look like the same, like the brother and sister or sibling.
Right.
Totally different look and shape.
So Diane shared, and I do this too, the glandular support and the hormonal support. I don't do the hormonal support. I just do the glandular support for my girl. And I actually started doing that for Sydney. And the only reason why I started doing it is because I overheard Dr. Becker talking about it making an impact on a dog's joint health, and it did. It helped Sydney. But and I know that Adored Beast Apothecary has a product as well. So how do these products help dogs?
Yeah, I mean, you're taking the body back to normal. And certainly, we all think of the spayed female who drizzles urine as she gets older because the urinary tract sphincters are toned up by the presence of estrogen. So it used to be we put those dogs on DES, diethyl stilbestrol, which is an estrogen. And now we use other products. But you normalize the body with these products.
Right.
And, one company's may work better than another's for you. So find the one that fits the individual dog.
Courtney asked a really cool question. The connection between mental maturity for dogs and the neutering age, is there any connection?
Definitely. And there are studies, and we'll have to find the Chris Zink. The link to Chris Zink has a beautiful summary article with 55 references. It's a free downloadable PDF you can get from her site. Dr. Chris Zink is a double doctor, a DVM and a PhD, and she has a whole other list of certifications. It goes on for a couple lines. She does a lot of sports medicine and such, and dog agility, actually. But the studies on less bite, less aggression, one study was specific to Vizslas, but, spay and neuter early is associated with more problems. And when I say early, I mean pre-puberty.
Okay. And what age is pure?
Anywhere, think of when they first come in heat. So anywhere from 6 months to, in some dogs, 12 or 18.
Okay, so I found, hopefully I didn't mess that up.
It's on her articles by Dr. Zink.
I did find it. I have too many letters.
Yeah. There's a 2015 version and a 2018. If you don't have 50 some references, you don't have the newest.
And so I'm not sure, but this is from 2016.
Yeah, I think there might be something later, but if you go to caninesports.com, you can.
Yeah, that's what it is.
She's a really brilliant woman, and a lot of her content I reference time and time again.
And then should you wait for heats for females?
Yeah, well, if they're gonna be done at 2 years of age, yeah, they're gonna have a couple heat cycles at least.
And then it's because for some people they've been told if you have a female dog to wait until they have at least one heat.
Yeah, and they're gonna have that first heat for most dogs between 6 and 12 months, but they're not gonna be skeletally mature in many cases until later.
Okay.
So it may be 2 heats. It's going to depend on your dog. But yes, and, it's not that big a deal to have a female in heat. Just keep track of her. Don't send her out the door unattended. It's mainly hard if you have an intact male, but it's still manageable. Dog show people do it all the time.
And what is Pometra?
It's Pyometra, the one that left out. Yeah, and that's a uterine infection, and it can happen. I don't see as many as maybe they see in other areas. It is a risk, and if your dog gets a uterine infection, she has to be spayed. So yeah, you roll the dice. I've known girls who died of old age with their uteruses there, never happened. And I've also seen dogs who got a pyo after their first heat. So, there's a lot of individual variation, but it's something to be alert to, but I don't think it's a reason to be forced into a spay that you're not ready to do.
Okay. And I have heard people talk about that they're going to do, remove the ovaries.
Spay.
Exactly. And the same thing with the dogs, or with the male dogs. There's that version. And my question is, how common is this? And are there enough veterinarians around the country even offering this? And is it more expensive?
A lot of veterinarians, don't do this. And, there's a little more technical aspects to each procedure. It's a little, most vets are very comfortable doing the traditional procedures. These are going to take a little longer, have to be a little more precise, but they're not exceedingly difficult. I would not take the ovaries out because the whole plan is to have the hormones. Mm-hmm. So if I was going to do a procedure, I would want to leave the ovaries and remove the uterus. So she can't have a PIO, she can't carry a pregnancy, but she still has benefit of her hormones.
Mm. So looking at here, I'm going back.
Yeah, and Diane says, I disagree. They may, depending if you leave a little vaginal tissue, they may still have a heat cycle. And even if they don't bleed, they're still going to have that hormone cycle. And yes, they will be attractive to males. But that's actually what you want if you want the hormones. So, you want the fire, you got to put up with the smoke.
Yeah, I'm going through and reading the comments. Just going through.
And FYI, I've had a totally neutered male, conventionally neutered male, breed a female. So, he was neutered at about, 3 years of age.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
I didn't hear that at first, and then it clicked. I'm like, wait, what?
Thank God and everyone.
Man.
It was very safe. There was no possibility of conception. But yeah.
Okay, so I see all of this.
You're up on the comments here.
I think so. Yes, now I am. So is there a such thing as a botched spay? I figure there has to be.
A botched spay? Yes, people make surgical errors.
I figure there was a botched neuter if your neutered dog was making.
Maybe what you're talking about is if you did a traditional spay and there was an ovarian remnant, meaning a little piece of the ovary was there, so you still had the bitch cycling. That can happen. And sometimes there is actually ectopic ovarian tissue. So it's not, you took the whole ovary out, but there was a little tag of ovarian tissue sitting over on top of the kidney, and it's still endocrinologically still produces hormones. So that's not necessarily surgical error. That's just, you got 1 in a million dog that had ectopic ovarian tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we'll go back in. Thinking of it now, it's like I'd leave it alone. But people complain about her being attractive to males and all. And you go back in when she's actually in heat and attempt to locate that tissue and remove it.
And so when it comes to early spay, or just like the traditional spay, which it seems to me that I'm seeing it either starting at 4 months and going up to 9 months, where people are like being told to spay and neuter their dogs. Is that something that's commonly taught in school? Like, is there a range that's common?
I don't know. We need a vet student. I don't know what they're teaching now. I'm sure that they're teaching more about the ovary sparing spay options and the benefits of things being older, because, the PhDs are talking about it. But, they're probably also teaching anytime after 6 months is fine. And, the shelter is a unique environment.
Yeah. And one thing that I notice is I have a friend who has a lot of dogs, and she loves Labradors, and she had a Labrador that was neutered at 2 years old and a Labrador that was neutered at 8 weeks old. Both of them had cruciate blowouts. Yep. Both of them are healthy dogs. One of them he's older, so he's, towards the end of his life. The other one is midlife. But, as far as health, they've had pretty much the exact same health situations, despite the different.
No, it's not the only factor. There's genetics. The Labrador breed certainly is a high cruciate incidence breed. And, there's Labradors and there's Labradors. How carefully was it bred? What were the hip ratings? What were the elbow ratings? How fat did it get? Was it a field lab? Was it a show lab? So many variables to consider. And that, then the comparison between those two dogs. I presume the 8-week-old one was out of a shelter and the other one might not have been.
Yeah, the other one was
a little bit of apples and oranges. And of course, cruciates happen for a number of reasons. Were they eating dog food? Were they vaccinated every year? What were their other risk factors?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, speaking of that, Leslie, I know we touched on this a little bit with the supplements that people are giving their dogs, but is there anything other, because one thing that I've done, I mean, my dogs were all spayed and neutered by, I don't know if you would, because to me, early spay and neuter are the puppies that are being spayed and neutered, 8, 9, 10 weeks old. My dogs were, Apollo was neutered early at 4 months. The rest of my dogs were neutered and spayed at 7 to 8 months old. And I thought I was really like bucking the system right there of waiting. But, once, we bring a dog home, whether it be from rescue or from the veterinarian, what should we do? I mean, I imagine all the people who are learning that the age that they chose was too early. What should they start doing to basically give their dog a better shot?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the glandulars early and just all the other natural health things that we do. And in terms of mental development and behavior, get your freaking dogs to puppy class, to an enlightened puppy class, and do something with them. Whether it's, basic obedience, basic manners, maybe you want to get into nose work, stimulate their mind. Maybe agility is your thing, or barn hunt. There's so many fun things to do with your dog. The more mental stimulation they have and the more outlet for their instincts, the better. The worst thing is, they go out in the yard, they play ball with the kids, they hang out on the couch. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's not good. Go see the world, go do stuff.
And for me, it's like, for instance, using Scout, Zoe, and Apollo as an example, I guess throw Rodrigo in there too. One thing that's so important to me is getting my dogs exercise, but also not repeating exercises. So we don't just play fetch. We are swimming, we're walking, we're doing all kinds of things. And just
property.
Yeah, because of the joints, because I don't know as far as, was I too early when I had them spayed and neutered? And so that's helpful. Also, and then of course, I'm minimal vaccinations, raw food diet, and basically putting some thought into the foods that I'm adding, because since I did take that glandular support out of their body, how am I going to add it back into their diet to make sure they're getting it? I want to see, I saw a really interesting question. Well, is that it? Yes. Courtney, where, I know we talked about, temperament when it comes to the early spay and neuter. One thing that I've noticed is sort of like there's seemingly myths, and even I believe them as well for a long time, of like, you want to get your boys neutered because it'll make them less aggressive, and how true are those type of statements?
Well, if you go to the zinc summary paper, you'll find the references, but in short, bullshit. Because the incidence of bites and aggression in neutered dogs and young neutered dogs is higher, because they never go through the puberty maturing process that works on their brain as well as their bodies. And if you think about Mother Nature, does it do any good if all of the males of your species are attacking and killing each other? No, who's going to reproduce? So a male with his parts learns the appropriate language to communicate with other dogs. And, there may be some noise, there may be some growling, but there's not unprovoked aggression. There's posturing, there's communication, but it doesn't become an out and out fight to the death. And, that makes sense from the Mother Nature viewpoint. And I think also in those papers that are referenced by Dr. Zink, you'll see the human bite risk is different. Essentially these young early neutered dogs can be very unconfident. They're the dogs that you walk into the exam room and they're hiding under the owner's chair. And the owner's like, oh, he's scared. And I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. You have to get this dog out. You have to build his confidence.
Mm-hmm.
He's scared and he thinks he's fighting for his life.
Yeah.
And, hormones play a fact in making them a little more, or play a role, I should say, making them a little more outgoing and hi, how are you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or, I'm self-confident and I'm going to show you what a big, tough guy I am. And you can work with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and what's interesting is I know in my community, we have a brewery that's dog friendly. So all of us go every week. Some of us bring our dogs with us, and there are employees that bring their dogs. The owners bring their dogs. So this is 4 dogs that are always at the brewery, wandering around, not on leash, just doing their thing. And they're so calm and relaxed. And 2 of the dogs came from a breeder. Spay was delayed. 2 of the dogs came from rescue. They were spayed and neutered at a young age. But the point of me saying this is because all of the dogs were socialized so well that,
hey, you notice mine are quiet. Yeah, while we're speaking in generalities, yes, you can overcome this, and having older dogs that are normal to follow, take the lead from, is really helpful. And a lot of times if I have a dog that's a puppy that's not real confident, when I take him to or her out into the world, I used to take him with my Labrador, who was like, the world is great. So they have a good role model that puts out the vibes that everything's fine.
Right.
So
there are some complicated questions now that I want to get you to. Let's talk about this, which is, what about if they have false pregnancies every time after their regular heat cycle? So what's a false pregnancy and how common is this?
That's an interesting thing. And I was reading something the other day on Avidog. And hi, Sarah. Sarah has a great comment on. We have to bring her up. Avidog is a breeder's educational site that I have a membership to. And the expert that was talking said, basically every time a dog has a heat cycle and is not bred, she has some degree of a false pregnancy. And you may see it come to the point where she's gathering stuffed animals and nesting and even has milk, or she may just be a little mellow and such. But that's the nature of the way the dog's reproductive cycle is. So, do I worry about it? I keep track of it. I've heard anecdotal reports that a false pregnancy is an indication that she's more at risk for PIO, so I'm always watching. If it becomes a pain in the butt, you may elect to spay her. This is it's not black and white, and any individual may warrant surgery at a specific time. So make your best call.
And I saw, there's this question, but I also saw a question about vaginitis. So what is vaginitis? And
just inflammation of the vagina. And that's what it is. And sometimes you'll hear about puppy vaginitis. I think probably what that questioner was asking about was the fact that when you spay a female young, her vulva, which is the external genitalia, does not develop. And they often get chubby. And then there's a fold of fatty skin that's over that, and they get chronic urinary tract infection. So if I have a female with a small vulva to start with, and the owner's contemplating a spay, I'm like, you have to go through at least one heat cycle.
Okay.
We're going to be dealing with urinary tract infections all the time because urine pools there and bacteria just feed on it, and there you have it.
Okay. And so laparoscopic spay, what is that?
That's laparoscopic, where you just make a couple little holes and introduce an instrument to it, as opposed to a full open abdomen. Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously the advantages of it are nice small incisions, less layup. I don't do laparoscopic surgery, so I can't speak to, how easy it is. I can tell you one disadvantage is it'll cost you a lot more. But it could have certain advantages if, it's a real active dog, makes post-op a lot easier.
And so, is this the one that you were talking about from Sarah?
Yeah.
So what's she referring to? PT relationship?
I think what she's headed towards, she put a link in.
Yeah, I see that's right there from Frontiers.
And Sarah, can you type out what the title of that article is? Because it's not coming through on our screens.
Yeah, we're just seeing this.
Hormones also play a role in how much muscle you carry and how much you can build. Obviously, we know bodybuilders take anabolic steroids, which is essentially testosterone, to build up more muscle. So let's see.
What about fat? Do female dogs that are spayed earlier, do they tend to gain more weight?
That's the urban legend. Obviously you do alter their metabolism, but I think people also just overfeed these dogs. And the paper Sarah's referencing is the one from, I believe it's UC Davis.
Is it right here?
Yeah, they talk about a bunch of specific breeds, and breed by breed, they tell you when to spay or neuter it.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Sarah.
Truthfully, I didn't like this paper. I felt like they were making a lot of recommendations based on an artificial population, because they use the hospital population, and the population that's going to a university referral hospital is a whole different group of dogs than, we see at a general practice. You're seeing dogs. Well, often you're seeing dogs owned by people who have more money because they're going to a university hospital and seeing specialists versus just general practitioners. So, read it. It's well worth reading. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm sorry.
Did they add you back to the group? Oops, Laurie's fell out. Let's put her back in.
Yeah. How do I leave the stupid group?
I'm because of this, I just want to add you to a group that said every time you take yourself out, put you back in.
No.
Oops.
I just keep deleting the conversation. There's no way to leave it easily.
If it's on your phone, it's harder. I think iPhones, iPhones used to allow you to leave a text chat. Android doesn't have that option.
Facebook group message, but these texts, they don't want to let you out.
Yeah,
it's like people go.
Like, why are you being so introverted? Talk to people. As your phone is ding ding ding.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
So,
sorry guys. So
it's not so much about supplements. It's the only ones we mentioned were the glandular support and what was the other one? It's glandular support and there's another one. It's basically the Mercola line. Yeah,
Mercola. I think Standard Process has some, and you said Adored Beast does also.
Yeah, glandular support and some type of hormonal support. Yeah. So does Adored Beast. But to be honest, as the person on this live that did not wait or did not wait long enough, I gave one supplement to Sydney because of the benefits to her joints, and I definitely saw a benefit. I give it off and on to Zoe, but not a whole lot, and my dogs don't get anything, and they're fine. Of course, this is a sample size of 5 dogs, so don't take it to the bank and try to cash that check. But I honestly want to say, before you run out or go to your computer and start ordering a bunch of supplements for your dog, actually slow down and ask yourself if your dog needs the supplements. And that's a conversation you can have with your veterinarian. But I just cannot, I'm no longer on the board of, which I used to be very much a supplements person. I'm just, it's expensive. It gets to be too much. And at some point in time, especially if you're feeding fresh food, your supplements, you may already be covering something in your dog's diet, and some supplements can offset others.
So do your research.
Yeah.
And really consider the rotation. Yeah, and Sarah, we were talking earlier about Chris Zink's summary paper on her site, caninesports.com, I think. Oh yeah, and Diane mentioned spay coat.
What is that? What is spay coat?
Oh, it's or neuter coat. When you remove hormones, you alter the hair cycle, and a lot of times our coated breeds will get just the most amazing coat proliferation, and they don't shed in the same way an intact dog does. They get incredibly fluffy. It mats easily. It's just a nightmare. I had one Aussie, the Aussie that I inherited, that had an awful neutered dog coat. And he was a nightmare to keep unmatted and tidy.
Oh, yes. And this question, of course, I mean, you may have missed at the top where Laurie said that she wished she had the photos of litter mates that where one had been spayed or neutered and the other one hadn't. Because, you know, with Scout, even though I think Scout looks like a beautiful, gorgeous dog, but I am biased. But I am curious to know about, he's very leggy. He's not super leggy, but he has legs on him. And I'm curious to know what he would look like if I had waited until he was 2 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. They get really leggy.
Really thin. It's like, and it feels like another question here. Well, it's the same question. Is like, I've seen dogs that are where they do delay the spay and neuter, where the dog kind of fills out a little bit more. The chest pops out.
Everything kind of settles down into place. Yeah, without a doubt.
So, and yes, and here's the supplements that Diane mentioned earlier, hormonal and glandular. Thank you, Diane. Let's go. This is a good question. Do you even know what cost have you heard of and when it comes to the ovary sparing?
This is where I get in trouble. Costs vary widely geographically. And over the weekend, and one of my pet peeves is I no longer do emergency medicine, and I certainly don't do it on Facebook. Somebody tagged me in a comment, and the post was something about a dog that was hospitalized, and the person thought the prices that the emergency clinic was charging were outlandish, and they posted the estimate up there. And it's like, I know the rough geographic area, and I looked at this estimate, I'm like, this is perfectly appropriate. And they're like, well, I'll be out of money, and I can't get this test done until next week, or because it's on the weekend. It's like, yeah, that's the reality of veterinary medicine in COVID. You can't necessarily get a specialist on a weekend or a Sunday morning or whatever it is. So I don't quote costs online, because to me, what was very reasonable to this person wasn't. I would say an ovary sparing spay is going to be more expensive than a traditional spay, because it's simply going to take longer. So
thank you, Diane. But if you guys can see
the bully pictures.
Yeah. So I guess the one that's on this side, that I suspect is the spayed neutered animal, and this one isn't.
Yeah. Do they even look like they're the same breed?
Yeah.
Look at the narrow.
Actually, it looks like one is purebred, and I would say the other might be a mix.
Yeah, no, I've seen this picture toted around. The one under the chairs is the early spay, early neuter, whichever. And yeah, that's the difference you see. The muscle mass is different. The breadth of the animal is different. The angles of the legs, which is where the cruciate ligament issues come up. It's amazing the differences.
Yeah. So it's, I want to just, we're coming up onto an hour, so we're going to wrap this up. And I just want to say, if you are like a tried and true rescuer, where it's like, I only want to rescue my dogs, and you are coming up against, dogs that have early spay and neuter, I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, yeah, you may be taking on issues, but there is no hard and fast rule. Every dog is unique. And there are so many things that we are doing for our dogs today that are helping improve their lives. So I know so many dogs that, compare, like I have my friends here, and it drives me crazy because I am this person who's making my dogs food. I have 2 freezers filled with their food. I don't, vaccinate. I'm doing all of these things. And then I have my friend who feeds kibble, who does early spay and neuter, who does vaccinate. And our dogs are all healthy and doing well. So there is no guarantee. There's no hard and fast rule that says if you do blank, this is going to happen. It's just saying that there is a risk of this happening. And I just want to make sure you guys understand that, because I see too many people passionately arguing with others about spay and neuter where, we don't know what's going to happen. We just know what could happen. So it's just.
Well, and you just have to decide, are you comfortable with that risk? Or are you better off getting a dog somewhere else where you have more control? And I mean, I saw a rescue dog today that supposedly was 2 years old and from Puerto Rico. And I looked at it, I'm like, well, you look a little older than 2. And he was there for me to check the teeth. And the dog's mouth was a disaster. And the dog's probably about 12 years old. And this woman was upfront with the rescue. She said, we can't handle a puppy. We need something that is adult. A little mellower, and they like this dog. It's very pleasant. And they said we can't take on a money pit. We have limited income, and this dog needs $1,500 of work done and probably about 14 extractions. And that rescue group, the rescue group said, oh no, you don't have to pay for him. It's like they just saw somebody who wanted this money pit and sold it, pushed it off on them. And here's this woman who loves the dog. She's somehow going to come up with the money to do what's right for the dog. But, she really was not okay with that risk. She told them she wasn't okay with that risk, and it still happened.
Yeah.
And I was really, really sad for her.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, and also keep in mind that check with you before you make a big decision about your dog's spay and neuter. If you have pet insurance, make sure your pet insurance will cover some type of alternate surgery or treatment.
Good point.
Because it's like, it can get expensive, and if they don't cover it, then you're out of pocket on your own. And the last comment, I mean, I love this comment by Sarah, where it's nature and nurture both play a role. And Amy, if you signed a contract, you're bound to that contract. So if you don't want to honor the contract, you'll simply have to say, I'm not going to take the dog. But unfortunately, it's like, if you signed it, you're bound to it.
Yeah. And I mean, you can call and say, hey, look, I want to leave him intact. I have no intention to breed him.
You can do a plan, tell them how you're going to keep your dog safe.
Yeah.
And then maybe even share like, hey, I'm reading these articles, and this is, so this has me concerned, and start a dialogue. And I think that a lot of people, I mean, I know that I respond very well to a reasonable person who is just asking me and we're having a conversation,
right?
And I'm not saying that you're going to do this, but sometimes it's like in these type of conversations, in anticipation of pushback, we kind of get a little defensive. Leave all of that alone. Just go in there with your honest concerns about the health of your dog, because this is the breeder has a history with all of the dogs, and they may be able to say the reason why I chose this age is because they have this history with this breed and this line, and so they're going to know a whole lot. So I mean,
and I would imagine if the breeder had not intended to sell this as a breeding dog, which I don't sell breeding dogs, everything that leaves my home is either in the hands of friends or people in the breed with me, or it's on a limited registration, which means no offspring can be registered. And that's essentially a bit of a deterrent to breeding the dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, just ask, have a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and then of course there's, and talk about, Diane says, can you do a vasectomy, talking about any type of alternative where it's going to achieve the same thing. It's just a conversation to have. But yeah, it's like, as far as the contract is concerned, you are bound by that contract.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to get yourself sued over this. But, you know, there's nothing that says that you can't have a conversation. And if the breeder does come back and go, hey, that's a good point, I'm down with this, make sure you get a writer to that contract that is like, this is what we've changed. Just whatever. Anyway, you guys, thanks for joining us today. Have a fantastic Tuesday. We'll see you later.
See you later.